What if the French had won the French and Indian War? What if history had taken a different course, and the French emerged victorious in the French and Indian War, 1754-1763? Would the United States as we know it exist today? Would French culture dominate the continent? Or perhaps, would the global balance of power have shifted in ways no historian could have foreseen? In this video, we'll explore one of history's most compelling what-if scenarios and see how a single war could have rewritten the narrative of North America and beyond. First, let's set the stage. The French and Indian War, known as the 7 Years' War globally, was a bitter struggle between France and Britain for dominance over North America. It wasn't just about territory. It was about trade routes, natural resources, and supremacy in the New World. Both nations relied on strong alliances with Native American tribes, who played pivotal roles in the conflict. France controlled vast portions of North America, from Canada to the Mississippi River Valley, while Britain had its 13 colonies along the Atlantic coast. As their ambitions clashed, tensions erupted into full-scale war. By 1763, Britain secured a decisive victory, forcing France to cede much of its territory under the Treaty of Paris. But what if France had won instead? Let's imagine how this victory could have reshaped history as we know it. A French victory would have reversed the outcome of the Treaty of Paris, allowing France to keep its territories in Canada, the Ohio Valley, and possibly even push British colonists back east. This alternate map of North America would look dramatically different. Instead of a continent dominated by English-speaking settlers, French culture and governance might have taken root. The retention of these territories would have reinforced France's colonial presence, infusing the continent with French language, law, and traditions. French-speaking Canada could have expanded southward into modern-day U.S. states like Michigan, Illinois, and beyond. The Mississippi River may have become a dividing line, with French influence extending from east to west. In this scenario, North America might resemble a fractured landscape. Britain would still control its Atlantic coastal colonies, but its westward expansion would be stalled. The boundary between French-controlled and British-controlled territories would likely become a flashpoint for ongoing conflicts. Furthermore, a French-held North America would mean a far more bilingual continent. French culture, especially Catholicism, could have flourished, challenging the Protestant, English-speaking influence in neighboring British colonies. This cultural patchwork could create tensions or even spark a unique, pluralistic identity for North America. French colonies would have developed under a more centralized authoritarian system in contrast to the relative autonomy seen in British colonies. France famously governed its colonies through its monarch's representatives, promoting a top-down structure. Local governance and self-rule, which later spurred democratic ideals among British colonies, may not have taken the same shape under French rule. This difference in governance might have delayed the rise of independence movements. Without the self-governing traditions of the British colonies, coupled with the French monarchy's grip on its territories, notions of liberty and individual rights might have taken much longer to surface in colonial society. An important piece of this puzzle is how Native American tribes might have fared under prolonged French involvement in North America. Historically, the French fostered strong trade relations with native tribes and often relied on them as military allies. If France had won, they may have maintained these alliances more effectively than the British, who pushed native populations westward. Could native societies have survived longer under French rule? Might their cultural identities and territories have endured instead of being systematically erased? In this alternative history, one could envision a more cooperative relationship between native tribes and French settlers, preventing some of the displacement and devastation that occurred under British policies. Perhaps the most intriguing consequence of this alternate history is its effect on the American Revolution. Without British dominance in North America, the 13 colonies may not have united against a common oppressor. The grievances that fueled the revolution, taxation without representation, territorial restrictions, and military oppression, might never have materialized in the same way if Britain hadn't expanded its control after the war. Alternatively, anger could have redirected toward French authorities. France's absolutist governance style might have alienated settlers in a different way, prompting rebellion against French rule instead of British. In this timeline, we might see the seeds of democracy sprouting in French colonies, with revolutionary ideologies aimed at dismantling the monarchy's grip on the New World. Would a French victory have prevented the United States from forming altogether? Or would an entirely different set of colonies rise to rebel against their European overlords? The answer lies in the balance, or imbalance, of colonial policies and aspirations. If France had won, democratic principles in North America might have evolved more slowly. The French colonial model didn't emphasize self-rule, which was such an integral part of British colonies' identity. Without the momentum of the American Revolution and the subsequent spread of its ideals, the push for democracy in other nations may also have been delayed. For instance, the French Revolution of 1789 drew inspiration from the American Revolution. But with no independence or democratic experiment in North America, French citizens may have remained under royalist control far longer. The ripple effects could delay the emergence of democratic governance worldwide, altering the timeline of political revolutions beyond just the Americas. Factoring in economics, a French-controlled North America could substantially change the trajectory of global trade and industrialization. France's monopoly over the fur trade and access to rich natural resources in the Ohio Valley and Mississippi Basin could have strengthened its economy. However, British colonies, stifled by limited westward expansion, may have struggled to flourish. The Industrial Revolution in the United States, driven in large part by territorial and resource expansion, might have been delayed. Would French colonies have prioritized industrial growth or remained primarily agrarian? Either way, the economic dynamics between Europe and the Americas would likely have looked far different. With Britain's global ambitions, it is tempting to imagine that a French victory would only be temporary. Would the British have mounted another military campaign to reclaim lost territories? A second French and Indian War, or even a North American branch of the Napoleonic Wars, might have been inevitable. Moreover, the ongoing skirmishes between British and French territories in North America could represent a Cold War-style rivalry, complete with proxy conflicts, sabotage, and espionage. Would the continent have seen centuries of strife, or could diplomacy have carved out a balance between the two empires? Fast forward to the present day, and the ripple effects of a French victory would still be visible. Modern North America might look like a mosaic of nations rather than a single United States. Would the idea of manifest destiny, the notion that Americans were destined to expand from coast to coast, have taken hold if westward expansion was blocked by the French? Alternatively, could we imagine a bilingual superstate where French and English coexist as dominant languages across the continent? American culture as we know it, its democracy, its industrial might, and its global influence might have taken on a decidedly different character. The United States may have developed into a very different kind of nation, or not existed at all. History teaches us that outcomes are often decided by razor-thin margins. The French and Indian War was one of those decisive moments, a turning point that decided the future not just of North America, but of the modern world. Exploring this alternate history underscores how interconnected political, cultural, and economic forces are, and how a single event's outcome can reshape entire eras. This scenario invites us to reflect on the fragility of historical events. What if one battle had gone differently? What if France had been slightly more united or better resourced? What if Britain had hesitated? The answers are unknowable, yet endlessly fascinating. In exploring this fascinating what if, we see a world full of possibilities. A North America split deeply along cultural and linguistic lines, a delayed birth of democracy, and unresolved tensions between French and British powers. What if the French had won the French and Indian War? We may never truly know, but imagining this alternate past helps us appreciate the complex tapestry of cause and effect that shapes our history. Now it's your turn. What do you think would have happened if France had won? How would our lives, cultures, and modern nations be different? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into history's biggest what-ifs. Like and subscribe for more from History Twist.